Anyway, here we are. So this morning's much the same way. Because the note on my calendar, I thought meant to do the video. So it was such a good thing that you reminded me, and perfect timing for what I wanted to do. Rogate Sunday.
That's how you say it, Rogate?
That's how, I think that's the Latin.
Okay.
What do you think it is?
I didn't know, cause I'd never seen the word before. Me neither.
It used to be in the pericopes,
In the letter?
the pericopes, the Sunday readings.
Oh,
The
okay.
assigned reading.
The assigned
The
reading.
fancy word for assigned reading.
Oh, digress.
Okay, let's
Sorry.
take a deep breath. Rogate.
Rogate Sunday.
Sunday.
And rogate, the word means to plead or to ask for. And it was in the liturgies, Anglican, Catholic, and Lutheran, up until LBW came out. And that ELCA still observes Rogate Sunday, but not as much as it used to. And the pleading is a planting. It is, the Rogate is pleading for the good crops, praying for the seeds, praying for the harvest. Do you have the picture?
Yeah. You need to add praying for workers.
Yeah, we really do now, yeah. I have a picture, it's the Angelus,
Hold on 1 second.
which is
Oh, yeah.
one of my favorite paintings.
Hold on, I'll get it bigger, just wait a second here.
You read my mind.
I'm gonna cut out the edges just a tiny bit for size.
This is a painting by a French painter in French countryside. And just what are you seeing? What, just describe the impact of this painting. What does it say to you?
Taking a moment in the middle of their work to put your hopes and dreams into this.
Either at the beginning or end of their work. It's
Okay.
never really related to the day.
Oh, you're right, the sun.
Yeah, the state of the way the lighting is and the state of the ground makes me think it's a little desperate. Because the ground is not ready for planting, really, doesn't look.
And it
I'm not a
also
farmer, I could be wrong.
doesn't look like a place of choice to plant either. I think as maybe common people, they took what they could or what, you know, what the wealthy class didn't, but wide open, fully exposed there, whereas the water issues like that, it doesn't look like a place of preference.
Yes.
This is the first piece of artwork that I actually remember. This was on the wall in my grandmother's dining room.
Yeah.
And so we always said it was the praying picture.
Okay. Well, what do you, if I say the other praying picture, anybody have one pop into mind?
You have bread, a loaf of bread on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The state artwork of the state of Minnesota.
What is it? Okay. Yeah, I like this because now Anne is gonna nail me on this one, but I have spent a grand total of 3 days of my life on a farm.
Why do you think I would do that?
Because you know farms.
You need more.
You got cows and all that. I'm out of my element, except that I was a gardener. And was heading towards becoming a master gardener, so I really love playing in the mud, which I don't do anymore. But I've always liked this painting because of what it says about the times and what it says about God and what it says about us. They did not have crop insurance. One hailstorm and they're wiped out. One tornado, they're done. there was a total dependence upon the weather. There was no irrigation system, you know, you get the point. We've lost that because we've kind of sanitized the process. I mean, people still get hurt, but crop insurance helps them at least survive. But we've sanitized it. We have no clue, and especially the city apartment buildings like myself. But we don't have a clue about the dependency on the land and the weather. And I think we've lost a lot by not being aware of that. So the church calls us to prayer. The Rogation days are the 3 days prior to Ascension. And so the Rogate Sunday this year is the 25th of May. I think I'd have to look now, I have it written down someplace. But the Sunday before Ascension Day is Rogation Day. Which is really kind of good for Minnesota, because that's about the time we get into planting. If we plant before May 15th, we get frozen out. But it brings back the whole idea of creation and about our dependence on God. And so the Rogation Prayers, many times, pastors would go out to the farms and bless the fields. That was done regularly in the rural areas. There would be Rogation Prayers where the farmers would all come together at church. And there would be prayers for the seeds, prayers for the plants, prayers for the weather, as the planting season began. And those of us even now that are gardeners, could have a sense of this. Well, one year, my daughter was about 3. And her grandmother had been diagnosed with breast cancer, which turned into bone cancer, which was becoming, and back, 50 years ago, that was a death sentence. But we had a newer house and it was the fall and I was planting daffodil bulbs because I love daffodils. And of course, the 3-year-old wants to help. And I don't know, I guess it was the teacher in me. I showed her the bulb and I said, "Do you think it's pretty?" We had that kind of dialogue. And then she would help me put the bulb in the soil and cover it up. But I talked about it with her, I don't know how much she understood, and she's turning 50 this year, so probably doesn't remember any of it. That this bulb has to die. And it will be changed into something beautiful. So I kind of used it as a death and resurrection lesson, if you will, with my child. And because grandma was dying. And so trying to help her process, whether she did or not, it helped me. But I do think that's something we can begin to understand creation and how we are affected by it in our prayers. Even if you plant, like I did last year, marigolds on my balcony, to get rid of mosquitoes theoretically, but to pray over those plants that they might do well. So this is the Rogation. Now, there's also, this is called Living Prayers, put out by the Liturgical Press. Oh,
Should I take it down?
no, no,
Just like,
is it okay to leave it up?
Yeah.
Okay. This book, Living Prayers, the Liturgy of the Hours, the prayer hours of the day. And it all deals with renewing creation. And so a prayer life that can be praying for the dogwood tree in the driveway. Although I would put it to the side, otherwise you're gonna run into it.
yeah.
Just a thought. Just a
Yeah.
thought.
okay to roll your eyes.
People roll their eyes at me. But it has psalms, it has prayers, it has ways of praying for renewing creation.
May I ask, is it like a devotional like today, you know, Sunday, May
Yeah.
4th or whatever, and then there's some things?
Yeah, yeah. But it's set up in such a way it can be reused year to year.
Yeah, it's not set for one particular.
Right. And then another fun thing that a friend gave me that periodically I use. But you know, you've seen Bibles in red print, which means
Jesus.
the words of Jesus. This one is called the Green Bible. And some editor went through and printed in green the parts that they thought, for example, the Lord saw I don't know why I just opened to this. The wickedness of humankind was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil. And the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind. It goes on, he's gonna blot out human beings. That's not really a good one.
Was that in green?
That was in green.
So they're maybe about the world, about God's creation? If they're
That's
in
what the
green?
green, that's what the green is. Yeah.
Okay.
Turn to Psalms, turn to Psalms.
Yeah.
Let's go to Psalms.
Well, then also, beginning part of Genesis must be green.
Yeah, but it's not easy being green. Oh, here's Psalm 33, yeah. Happy is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people whom he has chosen, his heritage. He has that in green. But anyway, I don't use this one very often, obviously. But it's kind of a way of helping us think in terms of the Bible's teaching about creation. Which Rogate prayers bring us back to that. And as we're dealing with whatever you want to call it, I'll call it climate change. As we're dealing with that, to be called back to the Rogation Prayers. I have mentioned, I think every year since I've been a member here, we have that wonderful plant your garden and bring it in.
Yeah, faith feeds our neighbor.
Faith feeds our neighbor. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we took the plants into the church or had a prayer out here over those plants to bless them and to bless the people they would feed?
Great idea.
I thought it was, but so far.
That's because it comes in weekly, not all at once.
That's okay, just pick one day.
But you could just have one plant to symbolize all the plants,
That's fair.
you know, but to get us focused on creation. I mean, even if we would have thought about it, the blessing of the trees that we're sending out today. Rogation calls us back to our dependency on God. I mean, I had an intern one time that I did 2 visits a year in their parishes where they were working. And he was this is the pastor that was supposed to have been. He was all upset because he was trying to do things and it wasn't bringing about the change that he wanted to have happen. And we were sitting out in front of the church and I said, well, here's what I think your assignment is going to be. I want you to command that grass to grow. Make it grow, will it, make it with your mind to grow. He says, you can't do that. I said, well, how does the grass grow then? And of course, he said, well, God makes it grow. Well, I get the point.
Write that down.
Yeah, you know, okay, you're doing these things, but don't expect it to happen overnight and let God take the growth. So anyway, I like the whole rogation process. But it makes us realize that It is God who creates. It is God who brings the growth. And even in our own spiritual life, it is God who brings the growth, not me. So those are some rambling thoughts about this. What are your thoughts?
That's not scientifically proven, that I know of.
Well, and on Easter Sunday, my sermon was basically about gardens. Garden of Eden, Garden of Gethsemane, and the Resurrection Garden. God likes gardens.
Well, that was
And,
such a great metaphor.
oh, yeah, yeah. And so to weave that into our quilt, we just automatically will put a plant in. But to bless it, to pray over it, is to implore God to be with this plant. That's all part of the life cycle. So I thought it was a timely time. And Rogate is usually the 6th Sunday of Easter. Is today the 6th?
It's the
Third
Third.
Sunday.
Easter is very late this year.
Yeah, so the 6th Sunday of Easter is usually.
Is actually, I think it's Ascension Sunday.
Well, it's the Sunday before Ascension, depending on.
Oh, yes.
Depending on where a church celebrates. Well, and God uses the land as a way of expressing justice. The sojourner in your land is to be taken care of. And even in harvesting, there was a certain amount on the perimeter of the land that the farmer was not to harvest for the farmer, but to leave for the poor people or the sojourner to come in and be able to get food. The idea was using your land to care for the people around you. There's all sorts of those illustrations in the scriptures in terms of the justice that comes with land. This is a year of Jubilee, and the 100-year Jubilee, which is not this one, Leviticus says, you know, if we want to, we're very selective about what we take from Leviticus. But it says in the 100-year Jubilee that all land is to be restored to the original owner. It's a built-in land redistribution every 100 years. Never has it been done. But all debt is to be wiped out. It's the 100-year Jubilee, wipe it all out. That's part of rogation, dependent upon God, letting God do the leading and guiding and growing.
A few years ago, I interviewed Judy Buddha for PrayerLab on the road, and she's a big gardener, and she kind of said like something like every seed is a prayer. You know, think about someone with a big garden or a farmer, like that's sort of like a whoa comment. And I think I was just gonna say, I think she also, and I would agree with this, it's like sort of being, you know, working in the garden is like, it's not work for me. It's like a sanctuary.
Right.
It's a holy place. Those conversations with kids over how things work and worms and, you know, all those, whenever we find a worm, the kids take it to our raised bed gardens because we want them in there, you know? So, it's such a joy.
Yeah.
That, you know, garden work is like. I don't know, it's not,
Well,
I don't know what the word for it is, but it's not work.
One of the most fun times.
Yeah, it's nourishing.
One of the most fun times I had when I first started working years ago, when I met on a different campus. They had this beautiful walled garden at the memory care unit. And it was trash. I mean, it was just, you could hardly walk through it. It was so out of control. And so I got about 20 or so volunteers, and we came in and just redid the whole thing. And of course, the residents just loved it. But then I got the big pots and we planted flowers. Now, if you don't try to get a 3-year-old to plant, it's one thing. To get an 80-year-old with dementia to plant, but it came back to them. They did it, and they loved it, and they knew which plants were theirs. And they helped take care of it all summer. I mean, it's a healing process too. So one could go on, I just have a deep love for gardening. I just don't do it anymore, but I love rogation, so I thought we could talk about that since it's that time of year.
I would say your pots count.
Yeah.
With the marigolds,
Oh, yeah.
you know, say you still are a gardener. You
Yeah.
still are.
Just a different.
One of my residents has beautiful plants on her deck. They're all fake
Oh.
and in bloom. And I thought, oh, I don't have to remember to water those. Anyway, but you're right, I mean, I go over and help my daughter with her garden.
So there you go. I know a gardener who is help cannot go out and garden in the yard anymore, but has those plug-in things in the kitchen counter.
Oh, yeah.
And that's gardening to me. I've got a very fluid mind as far as, yeah.
Or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is something, I think, that's even why my cat keeps me connected with creation. Noise, the giant is out of me, I threw up twice last night. She's too fast. Anyway, but it connects us with creation. These folks are so connected with that soil. And you know, the people that have legacy farms and then finally have to sell them.
Yeah.
You know how it breaks their heart to give up that land. So anyway,
I looked at that picture, it reminded me of Lutheran Ireland, just hearing about, obviously, you're the potato famine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just.
And I've been piecing together, and I'm going to do it. A prayer lab centered around dirt,
Nice.
oh,
not
yeah.
soil. Dirt. It's one of the great mysteries of agriculture in terms of our very lives, if you will, because as sophisticated as science is, we have no idea where to do. Okay, when it comes to the level of the formation of planets, like all this, it all came from somewhere else in the vast heavens. We have no idea where it came from, but it is described by William Bryant in his book Dirt, which I absolutely love, as the ecstatic skin earth. It is this living thing, and I'm going to bring that to PrayerLab and
Awesome.
a couple other stories and insights that charge me up.
Well, and you're mentioning that, I took students down and we spent a week in El Paso at one of our missions there, and the people that came to us literally were wet. We were right next to the Rio Grande. And so the wetback became real to us because we had to help them dry out. But then we went over into Juarez, Mexico, back in the barrio, and Father Thomas was there and had his mission. And do you all know what caliche soil is? It's in the southwest, it's in the desert, it's really like concrete. I mean, you can, once rain hits it, it doesn't soak through, it's just like rock. But he was teaching them, and it was becoming popular, they would chop out the caliche. And then they would bring in their garbage and other compost materials. And he was helping them create dirt. So that they could garden, because they were living, I saw houses literally made out of cardboard. But he was helping them get a food source because it was a food desert there. But again, creating the soil so that life can happen. It was an amazing place to spend a week. So we're way over, and I apologize.
Okay.
So,
Went fast. Thank you. This was our
Yes.
last prayer lab for like the program here. So with me going on sabbatical, just wait and see if there's stuff that